I'm Julia and welcome back to my channel, where today we are building a small cabin on the island in the world of Windenburg. And this cabin is autumnal inspired. However, the twist is that I do not own the seasons pack, so I don't really know why that is. I just feel that there were always other packs that I was more interested in. I only started playing The Sims some years ago, so I really do not have all the packs that are out there. I've just been getting them from time to time, so there's a lot of packs I have to catch up with, and for some reasons I didn't feel the priority to get the seasons expansion right now, but I still wanted to build something, something autumnal inspired, something inspired by the season. Now, I get that this build is probably not useful for anybody, because I feel most people will rather have the seasons pack than any of the other packs. So I don't know if this build is actually helpful for anyone, but it was just more of a challenge for myself to create something autumnal without actually having the season of autumn in the game, or having actually autumnal objects. So I just took everything from the other packs I own that would help me create this autumnal atmosphere. I was just looking for trees that had some autumnal colors, some autumnal swatches. Some of them are from Cats and Dogs, for example, but also from Get Together. And I feel it turned out quite nicely, and I feel the autumnal atmosphere comes across in the final result of the build. So it was more of a fun challenge, and I kind of like how it turned out. Now, I feel that it is a little bit too late for an autumnal build like this, because first of all, I feel that like every person who's doing speed builds on YouTube has already done like a bunch of autumnal builds, and then again, it's also already November, and I feel what I'm trying to create here is more fitting for September or October, with all the colorful leaves and the sunlit atmosphere, while I feel that November is more something I would associate with like a little bit of darkness, fog. It's already almost winter. It's already becoming cold. There already is some frost, some snow. So it's not probably not this very colorful and bright autumn anymore, at least not where I'm living here in Germany. But I still wanted to finish this because this also has been in the work for quite some time. It was also a build I think I started last year in autumn, and I finally wanted to share it, and I still think it's quite fitting. Now, here we are already creating the floor plan. It's not very complicated because it's really just a very small cabin. It's actually also a tiny house residential, so I think it has like 55 tiles, so it's still in the second tier of the whole tiny house system. But I actually made it a rental. I'll be talking about this a little bit more later, because if you're watching carefully how I'm creating the interior, you will notice that I forgot about a tiny little detail, and this is the bathroom. Like, I completely forgot to add a bathroom to this build. And it takes me so long to realize this. Like, while watching the footage, I really couldn't understand anymore how it didn't occur to me for such a long time that there was not a bathroom. This has never happened to me before, and when I was watching other speed builders and they mention a thing like this, that they, I don't know, forgot the bathroom or the stairs to the upper floor, I was always like, no, how can this happen? How can you forget about a thing like this? And then it happened to me too. Like, I completely forgot about the bathroom. And I think I'll be adding it in a minute. Like, I'll be adding only a 4-tile room, which I think 4 tiles is usually the smallest size I go if I want to create a full bathroom. Like, for half bathrooms, I also go for 3 tiles, but I know you can create a full bathroom even with 3 tiles, but I feel that's already kind of uncomfortable. But at least I noticed the bathroom was missing before I started with the landscaping, because it would have been so frustrating to add another part to the build when I already created all the landscaping outside. And you will see later on that the landscaping for this particular build was kinda tedious to do. So I'm really glad I realized in time that the bathroom wasn't there. Here I'm just collecting some trees that I thought might come in handy for this build that have some autumnal swatches, but I'm not going to keep all of them. And yeah, here I finally added the little bathroom. The roof was a little bit difficult to create. At first I didn't really know what shape I wanted it to have, but I feel just in the end it works out and it's not too annoying, and it fits in rather well with the rest of the build. Also, the bathroom will have a stone wallpaper, while for the rest of the cabin, I wanted to go with a wooden wallpaper. And at first, as you can see right now, I'm using the wallpaper from the Spooky Stuff pack, but in the end, I decided against this because, first of all, I have only used this recently in my small medieval farm, and I think I used it in this exact same swatch, so I did not really want to use it again. And also, I felt that the exterior didn't look very nice, so the windows, the doors, the wallpaper, everything just blended in and everything looked the same. There wasn't really contrast, and so I changed it out for a wallpaper from the Island Living expansion pack, which is the one you can see right now. So it has this very, I don't really know, this cappuccino color. I don't really know how to call it, but yeah, with the dark brown of the doors and the windows and this light brown from the wallpaper, it kind of has an American cookie sort of color. I don't know if this makes sense, but it looks very, yeah, I don't know. It somewhat looks autumnal. I cannot really say why, but I like the contrast between the two different wood tones, and I liked it way more than what I had created at first. And yeah, here we are already on the inside, and I'm creating the interior. And what I'm doing here is that I'm creating sort of a backsplash for this oven with some brick walls from the base game Live Edit Objects menu. And the reason why I decided to do this is that it seemed not like a good idea to have this old stove, which is probably running with, yeah, with firewood, with fire, like you can literally see the wood lying under the oven. So you actually have to light a fire inside the oven to make it work. So yeah, it seemed like not such a good idea to place this in front of a wooden wall and on a wooden floor. So I'm creating this little backsplash made of stone to just give the idea that there's some sort of protection, like some sort of barrier between the oven and the wooden wall. And I'm also placing these stone tiles also from the Live Edit Objects menu from base game to create the idea that there's just stone under the oven, that it's not standing on the wooden floor. And the reason why I didn't use just some regular tiles from the tiles menu is that it didn't line up with the fireplace, if that makes sense. So it was sticking out to the right side of the fireplace. So it was also partly under the bookshelf, and it looked very weird, and I wanted to have a little bit more freedom in how I wanted to create these tiles. Well, that was a very overly complicated explanation, but I hope it somewhat made sense. And I finally got to use this beautiful wardrobe from the movie Hangout stuff pack, which I love. Like, I love the wardrobe, and I never got to use it. Like, I think I used it years ago, but here it fit in so perfectly. And I thought, because the bedroom is very small and it's all very crammed together, it would make sense to place a wardrobe in the actual living area so that there was some space where the people living there, or the sim living there, could place their clothes and everything. Now, the interior is coming together very fast because, as I mentioned, it's quite small. It's a tiny house, residential, but while I was building this, I thought that it would also make like a beautiful rental home, like a holiday home which you could rent out if you just needed to get away from everyday life, from routine, if you wanted to disconnect from everything, because this is also located directly at the sea. You have a beautiful view from this lot to the sea around, or yeah, at Windenburg. And I just thought it would be a great idea to make this a rental and place you could just rent out if your Sims need to go on a holiday. So I'm going to name it like this. I'm going to name it Autumnal Rental, and I'll try to save it as a rental on the gallery, which usually does not work because for some reason you cannot really save builds as rentals to the gallery. At least I had a problem with this when I was trying to do this the last time, but maybe they fixed it. I don't know. I'm going to see it when I share this. But of course, as I already mentioned, you can also use this as a tiny house residential because it also has everything that your Sims would need to live. However, it doesn't have any like it doesn't have a lot of comfort, so there's no TV, no computer, no radio or anything, but it's not an off-the-grid lot, so I just wanted to make it a little bit simple so you can really get disconnected from everyday life. There's not a lot of luxury, but it's not off the grid. There's still electricity. You can still cook and do whatever you want. You still have like water, fresh water, but you just do not have like a lot of extra stuff. And yeah, here we are at decorating the kitchen. And usually I will decorate the kitchen at the very beginning of my interiors. So decorating the kitchen is usually the first thing I'm doing. But here, for some reason, I didn't do it because I first had to figure out what exactly I wanted to do. But I'm just placing some random clutter on this stone barrier I created, and I'm going to fill up the shelves above the stove with more clutter. And what I did here, and I didn't think this through, was that for the shelves, I'm also going to use some of the bottles from Eco Lifestyle that you can actually produce yourself. So you can produce the, I don't know, lemonade. I will just call it lemonade for now. And you can make this yourself. And I used some of the bottles and some more of the stuff you can produce yourself for decorating this kitchen. And I didn't think about the fact that it would spoil over time and that you would have a spoiled piece of food in your kitchen if you use this as a decorative item. And then while I was playtesting it, I noticed this little green smell, the green clouds coming from these objects, and yeah, I actually had to swap them out later. But yeah, I think I found all of them, and you shouldn't have any problems with this when you download this, so no more spoiled items in the kitchen. And here you can see me placing the lemonade bottle that caused all these problems. But yeah, as I said, it will not be there in the final version of this build. And also here I'm placing this little box with these glasses of, I don't even know what this is, but it will also be spoiled in the end, and I will have to swap it out. And I'm just using one of these base game baskets that have been added with the infants update, I think, and I love them and I love to place them everywhere, so of course it made sense to also just place them here. And the other decorative objects I placed, like these milk, I don't know, these milk things, and the juice. This is not going to spoil because it's literally just a decorative object, so you won't have any problems with this, at least as far as I know. And yeah, with this we are almost already done with the whole kitchen. I'm just placing this little curtain here because I thought it would make sense to cover up open shelvings like this in the kitchen with like a small curtain. It was a little bit tedious to place it because I had to remove the walls to place it freely, but yeah, it wasn't that big of a deal. And with this, we're not yet in the bedroom. I always want to talk about the bedroom, but we are still placing some clutter in the dining space or on the dining table. And now we are in the bedroom. And I love how the bedroom is in this little tiny space behind the curtains, like not technically behind a curtain, but I feel you could imagine that you could just draw the curtains to the center and then cover up this whole space. And I thought this was such a cozy thing, or just a cozy detail to imagine, that you could just hide the bedroom and hide the bed behind the curtains. And I thought this was actually a perfect space for maybe a couple who's trying to get away from their routines. It could even be a place for a honeymoon. So I don't know, I just found it a very perfect place for lovers maybe. And yeah, here I'm creating this collage of paintings. I feel it's a very, like, almost dark academia, which is my favorite aesthetic, I'd say. And I love how this turned out. I'm using different paintings or wall decorations from Base Game, Discover University, and Cats and Dogs. And I kind of like how this turned out. And yeah, decorating the sides of the bed was a little bit of a struggle because, of course, I did not find a side table that was small enough to fit in there. So I had to size some base game side tables down. And then, of course, it was difficult to place the clutter because the clutter is still snapping to the actual size of the table, if this makes sense. And also, what I noticed only when I was taking screenshots is that I placed these two sunflower vases, these vases full of sunflowers. And although these are both supposed to be sunflowers and they are both from base game, they look completely different. Like it's the one on the left is so stylized, it's very simple, while the one to the right is way more detailed and has a completely different texture, I feel. And I don't really know how this came together. Like, were they always in the base game from the beginning, or was one of them added later on? Because I felt it was really weird. It looked somewhat strange to have these very different looking sunflowers next to each other, but yeah, I didn't want to swap them out, and I just yeah, we can just pretend these are two different types of flowers, but it was funny, and I don't really know why they decided on creating them so differently, but whatever. Now, here we are in the bathroom, which is the last room of the interior, obviously, and I'm creating, or I'm going to create this little toilet brush. And I always do this with either this thing from Eco Lifestyle, which is used for candle making, and some sort of tool that's also from base game live edit objects. And if I only use the base game, I usually use some white, I don't know, it's some sort of white random object from debug, which is also quite useful to create this toilet brush because, yeah, we still do not have a base game toilet brush. And I know there was one coming with the bathroom clutter kit, but I feel it doesn't really look like just your regular toilet brush. And I don't know, it kind of bugs me out because this is a very realistic item, and I feel every bathroom should have it. And it kind of is annoying that we do not have this in the game, so I like to create it out of debug objects. And again, placing some fake toilet paper on the toilet because yeah, I generally do not have the bathroom clutter kit. It would make my life very much easier, but I'm not sure if I should get it. Now, here, the shower, I'm just placing a shelf so I can place some clutter. And apart from this, there's not a lot of things I could say about the bathroom because it's such a simple space and it's actually very boring. And I do not necessarily am super excited about how it turned out, but yeah, it's a bathroom. But what is there supposed to happen? And I think this is like this rug was like the last thing I'm adding. Oh, I'm adding some cracks and stains to the walls because apparently I have to do this in every build I ever create. But I just love this to add some sort of realism, and I didn't add it to the wood because the wood swatch or this wood wallpaper from Island Living is already a little bit run down, so I just added it to the stone. And this was the interior, so we are on the exterior now. I'm just adding these decorative roof pieces from Island Living to add a little bit more interest to the front. And then we are decorating the front porch, and again, I did not really know at all what I wanted to place there. And yeah, you see me try a bunch of different things. But in the end, I'm going for a game table, and I think I just prefer using the game table over the chess table sometimes because it looks like a just like a regular table, like especially the one from Get Together, just looks like a random wooden table. So you could imagine that Sims can also, I don't know, eat there or do other stuff there and not just play games. And so sometimes I just feel it is a little bit more versatile than the chess table. And I'm also going to create a telescope. And I didn't really imagine this to be for or also for watching the sky or the night sky, but also maybe seabirds because you're directly at the sea here and you have this beautiful view from your front porch to the ocean. And maybe you can even spot the sea monster because if I remember correctly, there's a sea monster in Windenburg. I have never seen it myself, but I've heard the legends. Yeah, and here we are landscaping, or we are about to start the landscaping. And the landscaping for this build gave me headaches. It was an absolute nightmare. I don't know, it was Mostly because I decided that I would want to use the terrain tool and make it look like the house was standing on some sort of hill, and of course this added more interest to the whole appearance of the build. But landscaping didn't become easier because of this, because I think all the plants I placed were floating, and at first when I started building this, I really was set on not using the tool mod for a change, because I've never used the tool mod. I think I only started using it in the last two builds I did, like the two builds that are on my channel right now. These were the first builds where I ever used the tool mod. Before this, I never used it, and I don't know why I cannot stop using it anymore. I mean, I know why I can't stop using it anymore, because it makes life way more simple and you can realize so many ideas that you wouldn't be able to create otherwise. But I never used it for years and I still could create a lot of cool stuff, and so I didn't want to use it here. But I don't know, at the end I succumbed to the promises of the tool mod again, because it just made it way simpler to place all the plants. I mean, after years of building in The Sims, I feel I should have learned how to use the terrain tool, but apparently I have not, and I just find it very tedious to place plants and rocks when you also use the terrain tool, but I'm probably not the only person who's struggling with this. Now here there was a huge jump and we are suddenly creating some sort of shed, and I had to cut out so much of the footage here because it took me an eternity to create this. It took me so long. Yeah, it was just a whole mess. It was chaos. Now, I wanted to create a shed using some world edit objects, because if I just would have used the regular wall tools, the shed would have just been as high as the regular cabin, as the actual main building, and I felt this would have looked weird. And using this technique, by just placing world edit objects and debug objects, I had a little bit more freedom in how I wanted the shed to look like, in how big and high I wanted it to be. So it just felt like the better solution. But yeah, it didn't really work out at all, because these wooden pieces I'm placing, some of them have a really big footprint, so some of them were blocking my Sims path. And after finishing this build, when I was playtesting it, I had to I had to tweak so many things to make it functional. Like, I had to lower these wooden beams into the ground and lift them up from the basement to just make everything functional, and to avoid that they would block my Sims path. And it was kind of a mess. It was very complicated, and I don't know. At some point, I was just so done with this build. Like, I still enjoyed the end result, but there was just a point where I was really, really done with this build, and I just really wanted it to be finished. Now here I'm trying to create some sort of wood cutting, a wood chopping situation. Like, I imagined this round wooden beam from Cats and Dogs to be the thing you chop the wood on. I don't know how it's called. I think I don't even remember how it's called in German. But yeah, you put a wood on it and then you chop the wood. Like, you get the picture. We don't have a nice decorative axe in the game, but you hopefully can imagine what I was trying to do here. So yeah, everything in this build seems to have taken me ages. So I feel the whole landscaping process, the way I edited it, is also somewhat confusing. I just didn't want to leave too much of the landscaping in. I didn't want to cut out too much, and I don't know if I found a good way how to edit it. I feel it's a little bit weird, I feel it's a little bit chaotic, but it very well reflects the whole process of building this. And I wanted this video to be finished way sooner. I wanted it to be out last week or something, but I was just overwhelmed with the landscaping once more, and there's so many details I changed off cam, and yeah, it was really a lot. And I'm just really happy to can move on now to a new project, because yeah, the landscaping, it took all my energy out of me. I know this is very dramatic and pathetic, but yeah, it was just a lot. Anyway, the shed itself is just mainly used as a place for woodworking, and I'm also going to be placing, or I already have placed, the outdoor trash can here. And there's also going to be some more decorative items in the end. But at first I didn't really know how I wanted to continue decorating it, so I just took a break from decorating the shed, and I will continue with the landscaping for a bit, and in the end I will return to finish the decoration and the furnishing of this little shed. Now, you will see the landscaping was, as I already mentioned, it was a process. It took me very long, and I'm not going to be commenting on everything I'm doing, but just generally, I was trying to use autumnal looking plants like these ones from the debug object menu of Get Together. They look very dry. I know they still have flowers, but they look kind of dry. I'm also using all the birch trees from Cats and Dogs. I'm also using some of the dry rose bushes from Vampires. Just everything that looked a little bit wilted and a little bit autumnal, and I still try to make it fit in the landscape of the island of Windenburg. So I'm also just using some plants that I could spot in the surroundings of this lot, and I feel it looks kind of nice in the end. But as I mentioned already like 10 times, it was a struggle. Yeah, there won't be landscaping in my next video though, I can already tell you that. And I'm not sure when I will be able to release it, but it's going to be a shorter one, and I'm kind of excited to share it because it fits in quite well with the upcoming expansion pack. And this wasn't even planned. Like, I wanted to do this thing I'm going to show you in my next video ever since I started the channel, even before the expansion pack was announced. But now that we know that we are getting this expansion pack, it just fits in super perfectly. And yeah, I was already talking about the expansion pack in my last video because there was a leak about what would be coming with this pack, but so far it turned out to be right. So we're getting the For Rent expansion pack, as I'm pretty sure you have heard about this. And we are getting all the features that were leaked. So we are getting the opportunity to create our own apartments and townhouses with more units, and to have more families on one lot, and to be a landlord who's owning real estate and who's renting out places to tenants. And yeah, this is just kind of exciting, and I'm very intrigued, and I really want to know more about this pack and about the gameplay. And yeah, hopefully we will be getting a gameplay trailer and a live stream very soon, so we will learn more about this pack. And I also hope it's not completely broken, because we all know how buggy the Sims 4 expansion packs can be. But yeah, I hope it will be functional, because I'm very intrigued and I would love to build my own townhouses and apartment buildings. And I'm also really excited what other Simmers are going to create with this. And there also seems to be a lot of fun other gameplay aspects, like different games for children, like the hopscotch and playing with marbles, and then also the whole burglar thing. Like, I'm pretty sure it's not actually meant to be like a whole burglar system or something, but you can break into other Sims apartments, and it seems that you can snoop around and find information and then blackmail them or something. At least this is what the trailer seems to show. So yeah, that's kind of interesting, and I would love to learn more about this. And yeah, the next build I'm going to share is actually a build I built some time ago, but yeah, I haven't furnished it so far, and I'm going to do the furnishing on the channel, and I don't want to talk about it too much right now, but it's going to be very fitting for the next expansion. And yeah, let me know in the comments if you are excited for the pack, are your thoughts about this pack. Now, as you can see, we are still landscaping. We are just placing more trees and more plants and more rocks, and it all takes a very long time, and I'm consequently desperately trying to smooth out the terrain to make it all look kind of balanced and not too wonky. I'm not sure how this turned out. This is not one of my favorite landscapings I ever done, so I still like how it turned out. I feel it looks autumnal and it brings across the atmosphere I was going for, but I still feel it could have been better. But at some point I just had to stop myself from changing even more because I'm such a perfectionist. I could work on this for the rest of my life and I still wouldn't be happy with it. And at some point I just had to stop myself from continuing to do tweaks and to move things around and to add small details and just try to improve how the plants look on the terrain because I it was really taking way too much time and I just had to stop myself from getting too invested in this because at some point I feel it's just enough and I feel it cannot be completely perfect with how the game works. Or maybe this just is an excuse and I was just lazy. I don't really know, but yeah, I feel it still turned out okay in the end and I can live with the result and I hope you can too and I hope you somewhat like this build and yeah, if you like it and want to play with it, you can again find it on my gallery and it's also play tested and everything should be functional, although it took me some time to make everything work because as I already mentioned, some things were blocked, like the planters I placed next to the shed, and I had to tweak it a little bit to make everything functional and to make sure that nothing was blocked and your sim could reach everything. But in the end, it all works out quite fine, I think. Now, I'm still adding some final touches to the landscaping here, just adding some more terrain paint. And one detail I'll be going to add in a minute or so are some more mushrooms, because I feel mushrooms are just the most autumnal thing. So here you see me placing all the mushrooms. And yeah, of course, I couldn't do without any mushrooms in an autumn or fall inspired build. So this is just a detail I really liked. And yeah, also one thing I wondered about this build regarding the next expansion pack is that if you can be a landlord and you can own multiple buildings and apartments, could you also own real estate for yourself, like builds you do not necessarily rent out, but you can just own? For example, it would make sense to own this build as some sort of holiday home, which you can go to whenever you want to without having to like actually rent it. Or is this whole owning real estate system, is it just for rental builds and builds you rent out? Is it just for these multiple unit lots? So this was something I was wondering about. And yeah, as I mentioned, I'm curious to learn more about this upcoming pack. Now, we are just adding some last decorations to this little shed, just placing some boxes and storage items, and I'm just putting one wall decoration from cats and dogs up on the walls in a minute or so, because I just felt it was fitting for this location of this build, close to the sea, and yeah, it was just a perfect opportunity to use this wall decoration. You will be seeing in a minute what I'm talking about, and yeah, there's just a lot of random stuff lying around, but it's not a useless space. It's not just for decoration because you still have the woodworking table and the outdoor trash can, so there's still something your Sims can do. And I just thought it would make sense to have a shed like this next to a cabin out in the woods because probably there's always some stuff you have to fix or some stuff you might have to create. So I thought it made sense to have this woodworking table here. And here you can see the wall decoration I mentioned, and I just felt it was very fitting for a cabin next to the sea. And yeah, I never used this thing before, so this was a good time to use it. And I'm also placing these gardening tools from Get Together, and I already used this on the cabin itself, but I felt it worked way better in the shed because the shed has the planters right next to it. So I removed the ones I placed at the walls of the cabin and then just placed some sort of ventilation thingy because the oven was right behind it, and I just felt it made sense to have something like this on the outside wall, but it's just a tiny detail and it's probably nothing you would even notice. Now I'm just placing this barrel as some sort of something to catch the rain, and this is almost the end of the build, so we are just adding some last details. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like this build and want to download it from the gallery, you can find it online. My ID is LaTalpaVolante, and my ID is also the same on my socials, so you can also find me on Tumblr and Instagram if you're interested. If you liked this build, please feel free to leave a thumbs up and follow my channel. It would be so much appreciated and it would really help the channel to grow. If you need any more information about this build, about all the links I mentioned, you can all find this in the description box down below. And I hope to be back very soon with my next speed build. And yeah, thank you once more and bye!